Hello and welcome, namaskar to everyone. This is Harshit Bhardwaj and this is the Fireside Friday chat on the Gist of It podcast. Today I have a list of 5 books that I'm going to share with you, and by the end of it I'll play you a little flute piece that I've just recently learned. So watch it till the end. I'm going to talk about books today. 5 books that I would like to share with everyone. I have read in excess of 2000 books in my life. It sounds like a pretty big number, but I was doing a little maths yesterday, and I've never followed a schedule or a regimen of how many books to read every week. But I've always gotten back to books and films whenever I needed some respite from life. So books have been my lifesaver over the last 25 years. I remember picking my first book in a small Delhi bookstore called, it's still there, the Khan, the Behri Sons in Khan Market. And I used to go from my house, get into a bus and go to the bookstore. It would be about an hour's journey in a bus, and I get to the bookstore and I'll pick up this book and I'll start reading a few pages, and then I put it back, make a little marker and note down the page number, come back next Saturday or Sunday I would go again, and that's how I finished that book in a few weekends. The booksellers, Mr. Bahri, and at that time his parents used to sit there. They would never ask anyone, why are you just reading the books or not buying? So it was quite a comfortable scenario. So I finished my first book without buying. It was a book by Osho, Fly Without Wings, and Speak Without Words, Walk Without Feet, something like that. Then I eventually bought that book. That was my first book. Since then, I did my master's in English literature, and then I went on to study at University of Liverpool, and I did my master's level course in literary studies and criticism and films. Why I'm saying I've read more than 2000 books is because I have at least 1000 books in my house. And when I came back from UK, we left over 300, 400, 500 books there. And then a lot of books in my Kindle, a lot of books I've read on the digital devices. So how do you do that? How do you read so many books? First of all, don't worry about it. The numbers don't matter. I never thought about how many books I've read until I was making this episode, thinking of this episode. As I said, there has to be a strong reason for reading books, and I can give you one very strong reason. Books are a gateway to a completely different dimension. If you are a reader, you know that. If you're not a reader and you want to get back to books, or you want to get started with reading, if you're a student, if you're in a job that you don't like much, don't enjoy much, it's monotonous, if you're recovering from an illness, if you are in that point of life where the life is a little low and down, please get back to books. Trust me on that. Whenever you have time in your hands and there is little you can fill it with, so rather than filling it with negative stuff, fill it with books and films. I often read 3 to 5 books at the same time. I don't read from cover to cover. I don't take recommendations from anyone. I just pick up a book in a bookshop or read a few pages on Amazon. Even if nobody has heard of the book, I'll pick it up, give it a shot, read a few pages. If I like it, I read it. I don't like a lot of classics that everyone likes. For example, I don't like a Harry Potter series. Of course, I shouldn't like it. I'm not a kid. But a lot of people swear by it. Fantastic films, good books. I don't like it. I didn't like Bram Stoker's Dracula, one of the most famous books. But I like the film made by Francis Ford Coppola. So don't worry about any recommendations. Just pick up a book, and I would recommend picking more than one book at a time. Pick 2 or 3 books. So what I do is I switch and flip. I read a book, start reading it. If I get bored, I'll pick up the next one, and so normally I can read 4 to 5 books in about 7 to 10 days without a sweat. So that has helped me become who I am today. I'm extremely proud with so many great authors passing on their insights and life experiences to me, and it's the fastest way to wisdom. So I'm going to share you 5 books that have impacted me. I have tons and tons of recommendations and lists, and I know I am contradicting myself. Don't take recommendations, but these are the books that have touched me, and these are the books from where I have extracted the gist and taken on life lessons. So the first one on my list is a fantastic book, small book. You can get started if you've never read it. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra, everyone knows who he is. It's a small book, very small book, less than 100 pages, available both in paperback and print and Kindle. I recommend you buying a hardcover. It's a small, beautiful hardcover. There are 7 laws of success in the book, and you should read it from cover to cover. You can read it in a couple of hours, but this book requires a lot of months and probably years to completely go inside you, right? So one of the primary teachings I took from that book, as I said, all the 7 laws given by Deepak are absolutely amazing. You should study them all. One that hit me at the time when I was really struggling in life recently was the law of giving. The law of giving. And Deepak describes the law of giving within the context of how it is an integral part of most religions. In Christianity, in Islam, in Sikh, in Hinduism, everywhere there is an allocation to give. Gautam Buddha used to go around villages asking for bhiksha. So he would go and ask for food door to door every day. So one of his disciples asked him, "Why do you have to go out and beg for food? We have everything." Buddha said, and this is probably the gist of this message, Buddha said, "I don't go out to ask. I know I can have food in my ashram here in the mutt. I go out, and when I stand in front of somebody and they give me food or they give me alms, they give me whatever they can with happiness and smile on their face, I'm helping them do the act of giving. The joy you receive when you give is invaluable. There is no other feeling in the world. And giving is not simply about giving money. That's what most people feel, that giving is about giving money. You can just pass on a wonderful smile to somebody and it can make someone's day. You can speak nicely and politely to someone who might be having an awful fucking day. You can just be a nicer human being to everyone else around. You can pass on your wisdom. You can pass on your insights and share them with the world. You can give whatever you have. The great thing about the act of giving that Deepak talks about and that I have experienced in my life, whatever you give out, whatever it is, it could be money, it could be your time, it could be your happiness, it always comes back multifold. That's the law he's talking about. So the act of giving from 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra is my first recommendation. The second recommendation, a series of books by Neal Walsch. So his first book was Conversations with God. I accidentally picked it up, just like I told you, nobody recommended the book. I accidentally found his YouTube video, watched it for 5 minutes, and then I searched for the book and I started reading the book in a couple of days. Conversations with God is what it is. It is apparently Neal's conversations with God. It's a very interesting concept and it's full of practical wisdom. What I picked up, the most important bit, and with so much of law of attraction stuff floating around, making it really confusing for a lot of people, this book will set the perspective right. So what Neal Walsch repeatedly comes back, and it's the God who, he's having a conversation with the God, and the God is telling him this repeatedly. God is saying that I am listening. whether you want to call it God or universe, whosoever, they say that I am always listening. What does that mean? It means that I am listening even when you are moaning or complaining. And I say yes. I am listening when you are thankful and grateful and you are happy with your life. And I say yes. So when you say, my life is absolutely awful, it sucks, I'm lacking in money, I have nothing, I'm just heartbroken, nobody cares for me, nobody respects me. And the God says, yes, that's true. And the same continues in your life. So how can you talk to yourself, just yourself, and convert your life, transform your life? So Neal Donald Walsch, as the instructions given by the God is, you have to speak in the present tense, thinking of things you want to happen in your life as if they're already happening. It is a tricky concept of law of attraction, but once you give it a thought and you try doing it, things can change. Rather than saying that my life is awful, when you say this sentence, my life is awful, even if it's not, it feels awful. And when you continuously internally repeat it, you start to believe it. And when you start to believe it, it starts to manifest. As opposed to, even though you are in a bad job, you're struggling with money and things are practically difficult, not awful. If you say within those circumstances that how wonderful, my life is wonderful. It can get better, it will get better, it is getting better every day, but right now I'm feeling wonderful. Just say it, try it. Anyone who's listening, just say how wonderful my life is. So if you don't feel it's wonderful, so the mental voice will say bullshit. But if you keep repeating it, suddenly in a day or 2 or 3 days or 10 days, the mind will quieten down, the negative voices will quieten down, and you internally will start believing that your life is wonderful. And then that's where you start doing great things. So how do you talk to yourself in present tense, in the positive affirmations, is one of the great lessons of Neal Donald Walsch's book, series of books, The Conversations with God. So do check it out. The third recommendation that I have for you guys is a book that is very close to my heart. And it's not a spiritual self-help book. It's an old classic modernist text by one of my favorite authors, James Joyce. The title is A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man was James Joyce's first book. It was his first novel and absolute bestseller and masterpiece. It's probably in world's lot of top 10 lists everywhere in the world. And it's a literary book. It's not for everyone, but you won't regret it. You can read it. It reads fast. It's a small text. The message in James Joyce's text is, there is a character named Stephen Dedalus. His story is told from the time when he was an infant until the time he finds himself and becomes an artist. It's a story of, it's a kind of a coming of age story of a character who's stuck in different ideologies, political ideologies, economic ideologies, religious ideologies, and then he has his tryst with the his sexuality as he enters adolescence and then teenage years in adolescence. So he goes through trying to understand all these ideologies, until one day he has a moment of epiphany and he realizes that to be a true artist, you need to transcend all these social ideologies. Because an artist is somebody with a pure and true, undiluted voice. So to be able to have a pure, original, authentic, undiluted voice, you cannot be installed in any of the ideologies of the world. The political, the economic, the religious. You need to understand all of those and rise above them. So he literally, actually, exits his home country, Ireland. And then it is told that this is based on James Joyce's own life. James Joyce also left Ireland and went to Paris and did all of his writings there. So James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, it's a literary text. It's not difficult, but if you are an artist, if you are anyone related to any of the artistic fields, you would love this book. It's a masterpiece. So that's our third recommendation. Right, so now we come to another spiritual self-help book by Om Swami. The book is kind of a technical manual into what is called as Kundalini, the science of Kundalini. Those who are aware of Kundalini science, I don't know whether we can call it science. A lot of people disagree, but this is definitely a tried and tested spiritual practice of thousands of years. So this book, Kundalini by Om Swami, is supposedly a manual to activate your 7 chakras and raise your Kundalini so that you can reach the pinnacle of human consciousness. It is a technical manual, but I'm going to give you a pretty straightforward 2 ideas from this book. One of the ideas is gratitude, which I have been exploring, studying, trying to understand, practice for a long time. And over the years, I think it's very much seeped into my life. And single-handedly, if I were to say what one idea changed your life, it would be gratitude. In this book, Om Swami gives you 2 paths to awaken your Kundalini. And this is what's interesting. First path, he says, will take you 7 years and a minimum of 10,000 hours of meditation. But then he says there is a quicker path that will take about 1.5 years, and he talks extensively about these 2 paths. Then he says, don't worry, there is another way that you can reach the pinnacle of your human consciousness. Whatever you are, an artist, an architect, an innovator, a doctor, whatever you're doing in life, you can reach the highest of that state. And he lists down 4 ideas. Out of those 4, I'm going to talk about 2 ideas. One is compassion, karuna in Sanskrit. Another is gratitude, kritagyata in Sanskrit. So compassion, he talks about, if you adopt compassion, gratitude, self-discipline and detachment, these 4 ideas in your life, your Kundalini or your awakening will happen faster than anything else. Compassion is mostly thought about just being kind, but compassion requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of courage, for example, to be non-violent. Mahatma Gandhi built his entire life around the principles of non-violence. Non-violence is an important tenet of compassion. One of the very beautiful examples of non-violence is that when you're talking to someone, you try not to even offend that person. That is a way of non-violence. Rabindranath Tagore was dressing up nicely in front of a mirror one fine evening, and Mahatma Gandhi asked him, "Why are you taking so long in combing your hairs? You are 90-year-old." Tagore said, "I don't want to offend people with my ugliness. So I need to present my best self." Even that is a wonderful example of non-violence. So non-violence is not simply about not being violent physically, but also being non-violent, compassionate in your thoughts, with your words, and with your action. So, I'm just giving you pointers. So if any of these ideas make sense to you, find more about them, study them, and try to adopt them in your lives. I can guarantee things will change. The second idea of gratitude It's such a wonderful idea. Going back to what I told you about Neal Donald Walsh's conversations with God, God only affirms whatever you say. So when you are thankful for whatever you have in your life and you repeat it in present tense, that is an example of gratitude. So I do this exercise, and I recently heard John Assaraf, one of the writers and practitioners and a billionaire coach, John Assaraf. He says I only do one thing in my day, first thing when I wake up, 2 minutes of true gratitude exercise. That's it. So I start my day by feeling all the great things that I have in my life. I put my energies there, and wherever energy goes, attention goes, energy flows, it expands. So rather than waking up and thinking about all the things that you don't have, all the things, all the reasons to complain and moan about in your life, let's focus to all the things that you can be thankful for. And I can guarantee you there are a million things, much more than what you can complain about. So gratitude and compassion. That's the fourth book recommendation. Kundalini. It is an interesting manual, so you'd love it. The fifth book, the fifth and the final book, is by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's called The Four Agreements, Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. It is very popular book. Some of you might have heard of it. I just again accidentally stumbled upon it, and I loved it so much. The idea from this book, there are four agreements, all are great, but one idea shines through. He says your words are like deeds. In the Vedic philosophy, it said that words are mantra. Everything we speak, if we start to take it seriously, everything that we are saying, speaking out loud, everything that comes out of our mouth, if we consider them as serious as deeds, contracts and agreements, if we stand by our words, things will change. So anything we say, forget from making promises, making commitments, anything that comes out of your mind, if you think they have power, so you'll be very, very careful. One, you'll stand by your words, you'll choose your words very carefully, you'll start to realize the power of your words. So as I said, all the four agreements given by Don in the book are wonderful, but words are deeds. For me, it changed a lot of things in my life. So wrapping up on these five books, please go check them out. I'll give you the links in the description if you want to buy them. And I'll wrap this video up with a little flute piece that I've learned recently. If you've survived the video so far, my thankfulness and gratitude to you. And I hope my words make a little bit of difference in your life, even if just a little bit. 1% is enough. So I'll play you a little piece. Thank you.